Luke Coffey. He is the director at the Douglas and Sarah Allison Center for Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us, Luke. We appreciate it. You know, first, these surveillance measures, they'd been highly controversial topics before this pandemic struck. So should Russians, you think, be concerned that those measures will kind of be snuck in under the radar while attention is focused on coronavirus?
Well, if you look at the trends that have been taking place in Russia over the past few months, I think there is a cause for concern. You've seen President Putin try to consolidate more and more power, and this is probably another way for him to solidify that rule by implementing some of these surveillance measures, which under normal times would, of course, be seen as very controversial. But under these extreme circumstances that Russia faces today, there might be a higher tolerance for people in the general public for these measures.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because Putin had taken this kind of, light, hands-off approach, only to end up, threatening prison time now for anyone violating quarantine measures. How would you explain that apparent switch?
Well, it is puzzling because you're right. For weeks, we were hearing from the Kremlin and from Russia that everything was under control, everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, Moscow goes on lockdown. This new legislation is passed in the Duma, and Putin is actually nowhere to be seen. Someone who likes to take a very upfront upfront leadership role in crisis, he hasn't been seen recently. So it's difficult to say where this is going in Russia, but something must have happened recently that has alarmed the Kremlin. And it's probably the fact that they're testing more and they're discovering that they have more cases than what they thought they had in the past.
Okay. Let me ask you this then. On the political front, I mean, you mentioned what was supposed to be the upcoming referendum on whether to pretty much abolish presidential terms and allow Putin to stay in power for at least another decade, if not two. Where do you think this pandemic leaves that referendum then on extending presidential terms?
It's difficult to say because we don't really have enough information to know where Russia is in this coronavirus crisis. It's still early days, but the number one goal that Vladimir Putin wants to achieve every single day is regime preservation. And he will do whatever it takes to ensure that he maintains power in Russia. And I have no doubt that he will use this crisis as a very convenient excuse to continue to consolidate and solidify his rule. And if this means that it will delay the referendum by some time, I actually do not think that will make any difference whatsoever because the outcome of this referendum has already been decided.
Okay. Luke Coffey joining us there from Washington. Thanks so much for that.